And just like that, we are back again reviewing the original Sex in the City, you know, because we need to. You know why. This is already episode 9 of season 1. I'm not going to go into that long intro. So, episode 9, The Turtle and the Hare. Okay, so short prologue. I did not realize the meaning behind this title until I was starting to do this review. Full disclosure, I mean, I would watch this series many times over. I wasn't really too much into the titles until I started to get into it now. And it took me a while to understand the turtle, not the turtle part, because that was very prevalent in this episode, but the hare, Hare. It didn't dawn on me until I realized as I started delving deep into it, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what they, yeah, okay, yeah, I was a ding dong. Ding dong, ding dong. I will quote myself today as a ding dong, so my apologies. But it does tie into the episode, which was kind of cute in its own little way. So second thing I want to bring up, I'm recording today, and today we got the news that Robert Redford passed away in his sleep. If you're gonna go, that's one hell of a way to go. That's how I hope that it happens. And I just find it so ironic that I was just mentioning him and the movie Barefoot in the Park in my last video, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, him and Jane Fonda. And literally when I heard the news that he passed away this morning, all my hair stood up. I was like, oh my God. Because right after I made that video, I actually rented the movie again because I have got to get the hard copy of this damn movie. I'm tired of renting it. I rewatched it and I still laugh at all the points. And oh my God, can we just give, a silent, goodbye to him, because he's like one of the last great movie stars of, that generation, not my generation, because he came before me, and though he did movies afterwards, but wow, it is kind of funny. It's not funny, but it's sad, but he went peacefully and he went in his sleep. And I think that that's beautiful. And it goes back to, like I said, aging is a privilege, not a right. Enjoy what you can when you can, because you just never know when it's going to be the last time you will. And hopefully you go to a better place if you believe in that, which I do. And I'm not going to say that all my viewers do, but he lived a good life and he did well. If he's, so now I really have to get that movie. And now when I watch it again, it's going to have a different effect on me because I know he's not with us anymore. So this is another video. So we're now episode 9. We have 10, 11, 12, 3 more to go before we hit 1999. And if I can get them out this week, I will. Another full disclosure, I do have a memorial service to go to this weekend. And hopefully I can get out what I need to get out and get these 3 out. It's an old friend, a very old friend, somebody I used to work with. So it's a sad time. So, but c'est la vie, that is life. So let's get into it. The Turtle and the Hare. Stay tuned. Scene opens. We meet this new character. Her name is Brooke, who apparently goes out every Saturday night with only A-list men. And every Saturday night is like the evening of the prom. So you see her coming in and out of limousines with different men. And, you hear Carrie's narration saying that, once that we got the invitation for her wedding, everybody wanted to know who she picked out of the bevy of men that she was dating that were considered A-listers. Who did she finally settle on? So we get thrusted into her day of her wedding. And apparently the person that she decided to pick was what they had called, and this is what Carrie is saying, am I the only one that remembers that she, said this guy was more boring than exposed brick? I don't understand that metaphor. I personally like exposed brick. I would love to get an apartment that has exposed brick, but maybe I'm reading into this very differently than what they're meaning. Okay. So now we get into the wedding, and apparently it's an average $100,000 wedding. They got money, clearly, because, what's $100,000 on a wedding? And that, all her friends were there, and then all of a sudden they pan into, and the girls, which carry coins. We look like the witches of Eastwick. Really, they do. First of all, it's hilarious. They're all in black. Oh my God. That's why I used the picture on the thumbnail, because this is the funniest one that I've seen. I was like, this is kind of cute. And they were placed, as Carrie's narrating, there's two sets of single tables in weddings. And I've been to these not $100,000 weddings. Well, yes, I was. Once in my life, I have been at $100,000 wedding. So I can concur that, and in any wedding, there's always the two singles tables, the ones that look a little bit better. And then the one that they throw everything else at it, plus the sink, kids, random people. And then we get introduced to who Carrie narrates, the turtle. Now, he is, pulling out the chair for one of the people at the singles table that they're stuck in. And she's narrating that he's known for two things, investments and bad breath. That's sad. Because I've known at least two men in my life that had the bad breath issue. Okay. And it was bad. So I completely understood this whole thing. I was like, ooh, just brought back memories, and I felt really bad for these two guys, and it was just like, I don't know. They weren't doing what we find out that he was doing, but that's not easy. That's not an easy thing to have. So I felt really bad for him. So as he sits down, Samantha comes over and he's checking her out, and, he gets up and he tries to introduce himself, and Samantha can smell the breath, and obviously she's disturbed. So she walks away, and then he sits down next to Carrie and he goes, your friend is gorgeous. And obviously the breath again, he has his mouth wide open and she's trying to hide it with putting a flower in her face. And, is she single? And I don't understand I understand what's happening, but I guess my point was, the guys that I knew that had the bad breath knew they had bad breath, right? One of them really tried hard to mask it, constantly brushing his teeth with mouthwash and all this stuff and never really getting too close to you. The other one was debatable. Gotta have memories of that. Not good ones. So to me, someone like that, you really? You're going to go like this in front of people? Really? Really? So the next scene you have, which I found hysterical, and this is the theme of this damn episode, which I kind of sort of enjoyed for the funny parts, but then it also brought to light a couple of sad things. So Brooke is saying goodbye to the girls. So she puts her arms out and she tells Miranda, can you believe I finally did it? Great. Miranda's like, uh-huh. Then she goes to hug Charlotte. You're next. Exposed Brick I don't know his name, really I don't, has a lot of friends. Exactly what Charlotte wants to hear, because she's going to be forever engaged in every episode, okay? Then she gets to Carrie, and she tells Carrie that it is better to marry someone that loves you more than you love them. What? I'm going to go back to what I said. This was the template of Andy Cohen's The Real Housewives of every county. This is what they do. They marry for money. They don't give a furry rice behind. They get a rich divorce. And then they go off and they do whatever the hell they want to do afterwards. Had I known then what I know now, I'm just saying, not confessing to anything, but I found it very interesting how this was the thing that was going on, because I never thought about it before. I really didn't. I saw Dynasty. I know about Dallas. I know about rich people. I never thought that they would actually purposely do this to themselves. I'm not saying it's a smart move, but it's enlightening. Next up, how Carrie interprets this statement that this random girl, Brooke, that everybody seems to know that we never see again. Stay tuned. The next thing we have after the wedding, Carrie's in her bedroom on her laptop typing in, why do people get married if they're not in love? Which is a very legitimate question, because I've asked that myself. And I'm learning a lot watching this show. And she decides to call Mr. Big, who is in his boring beige bedroom. And she asks the question, why do people get married if they're not in love? And he's like, I don't know. Companionship, valid, guilt, and political asylum. Great, sure. Okay, we'll go with those three. And she's like, why did you get married? because I was a fool in love, as he exclaims. And she says, oh, and then he says, I was a fool in divorce court afterwards. And she goes, okay, yeah. And you're now just a fool. And he goes, yes, that is why I'm never going to get married again. And you know what happens, right? Not in just every single episode afterwards, plus the two movies and then his death. This comes back to bite everybody in our butts. Okay. Because to make a statement like that and then end up doing the things that he did when he did what he did in the other shows and this show, not cool. So she hangs up and she is disturbed by this fact, which I can completely understand. Even at that age, and again, I hadn't been married yet. I was like, okay, so now we have the next scene with the girls. They're at the diner, which, by the way, this is a different diner than the one that they end up using mostly in the next seasons. I did notice that. This is really like a diner. So, Miranda is expressing the fact that, hey, a man who doesn't want to get married, shocking. And then she says that most men who want to get married is because they miss their mommy. Really? Is that true? And then Charlotte, is like, am I the only one that's bummed out about this? I mean, what if you're with this guy for 5 years and you have nothing to show for it? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. 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 I sure. I mean, if your goal is to get married or to have something to show for it, I guess so, because remember, we're in Charlotte's land. And then Samantha's like, listen, you play it cool. Pretend it doesn't matter to you. And then, they get curious about it and then it matters to them and then you end up, getting what you want. Very odd words for Samantha. Just odd, because I didn't expect that coming out of her mouth at all. Okay? And this whole scene is set up because we get introduced to the second part of this title of this, series, the Hare. So Miranda is very happy to say that, oh, it doesn't matter. In 50 years, men are going to be obsolete. We already don't need them to have children. And pretty soon we're not going to need them to do anything else. That's very sad if you look at it that way, because I certainly don't feel that way at all, especially a mother of a son and just as a human being. Like, why do we have to wash away the legitimacy of men in our lives, or as a species? Like, it was just very off the cuff. I didn't like that statement. And she says, and, I don't already need them to have, the best sexual experience of my life. And then Samantha picks up on the fact, oh, someone seems to have gotten let's put it this way, a Hare, Hare, her first one. And Miranda exclaims, not just one, but an amazing one. And then she names it the rabbit. And Samantha's like, oh my God, if you're going to get one, you should call it the horse. Oh my God. Okay. We'll go with Samantha's world. We have to appreciate Samantha because if she's going to do something, she's going to do it to the extreme, and we're talking about a rabbit and we're not talking about a rabbit. Okay. And, poor Charlotte is having a stroke. She's like, I am not going to use one of those things and replace him with a man. I will refuse to do that. Okay. I can see that too. That's valid. Does it happen? Almost. We get into it. And now it's like Miranda's exclaiming, well, at least I know where I'm going to get my next sexual fill from. Can anyone here say the same? And they all look at the table and they're like, shocked. They're like, oh, maybe she's kind of right. Maybe we do need to replace it because at least we know we're guaranteed we're going to get our big finale. Metaphors, people. Metaphors. We have to be careful. Y'all know what I'm talking about. My God, what in the hell? Like, again, I go back to this show, brings up things that I normally wouldn't talk about. And yes, it is Friday night in 1998, again, with my girlfriend. And this time, it was even more hilarious to watch this with them. So the next thing we have is, since they all want to know where their next sexual satisfaction is going to come from, the three girls, less Samantha because Samantha's on a date, which we'll get into, and I didn't like. We have Charlotte and Carrie and Miranda going to visit the store where they will buy the rabbit Hare. And Miranda introduces the box, and Carrie's first reaction is $92. Hey, listen, this is the first time that I've seen her react to something that's expensive, other than, always buying the latest labels and the latest shoes. So I was kind of impressed that she was kind of shocked that it was $92, because even I was shocked this night. I'm like, this rabbit better do some spring cleaning. And I'm not talking metaphorically. I'm talking about, I want dishes done. I want mopping done. I want cleaning. I want windows for $92, other than what it's supposed to be doing as well. Hell to the no. Back at the truck up. Okay. So Charlotte is like, oh no. And Miranda's exclamation, well, we've purchased more for shoes. Not me, but okay. I can understand what she's trying to say. So she takes it out of the box, and it's pink. And Charlotte falls in love with it immediately because it's pink. It's so cute. She thought it was going to be something else. And it actually has a little rabbit face in the certain area. And I'm like, really? This is where we're going with this? Little did I know where we're going with this. Oh my God, this is hilarious. So I'm assuming they decided to purchase the rabbit Hare. And the next thing you have is that we have Carrie in her bed, checking out her latest rabbit. And one of the things that she did mention before she left is that she noticed that it comes with a remote control. And she's like, my God, how lazy do you need to be? My point exactly. How lazy? So she's testing out the merchandise, or looking at it, not testing it out. Excuse me. And Samantha calls. And Samantha is telling her, you will not believe the night that I had. And as Carrie is playing with her rabbit, she can hear the rabbit rabbiting. And she's like, are you listening to me? I love the way she delivered that line. I don't know why, but I can watch that line be delivered by her so many times over. She goes, yeah, I am. So she's starting to go into the reason why her night was so unbelievable. So she's on a date with the guy that she met at the wedding. And he is telling her that I knew from the wedding that I was going to take you out to dinner. She's like, oh, you're so gaggy. And as he's talking to her, some random woman walks by and he checks her out. And he goes, I always go for what I want. I'm like, where are we going with this? He goes, I'll be right back. He leaves. Then it pans into 10 minutes later. She's still waiting for him at the bar after a couple of drinks. By the way, if I had a couple of drinks in just 10 minutes, I have a stroke. Okay. I'm nursing my drink at least 20 minutes in. One. So she decides to get up to find out where the hell this guy ended up, because he left her at the bar. And she goes off to see him at a corner with the girl that he was checking out as he was trying to talk to Samantha. And I'm like, yeah. Sounds about right. What I didn't like is her reaction. She felt at that moment, and I don't say didn't like, I'm going to clarify this. She felt insecure. She felt slighted, which I can completely understand. So she's trying to walk out of the restaurant, and guess who's there? The turtle. So the turtle notices her and says, Samantha, it's me, the turtle from the wedding. And she's like, hey, okay. He goes, are you here alone? And she's like, not really. He says, well, why don't you come and join me? You look so beautiful. And as Carrie is narrating, Samantha, she's saying that what Samantha needed the most right at that moment was a compliment from anybody. That was interesting. Okay. And I say that because this is what I've been saying before. Samantha had layers to her. As much as she tried to have a tough exterior and she always tried to play sexual, empowerment, women empowerment, there was points, and it doesn't happen very often, but it happens often enough for me to notice that there are moments that her self-insecurity and the way she feels about herself comes through. And we'll get through that as the seasons progress. I'm going to say it's at least one time per season where you really see another side to Samantha that contradicts her outwardness and what she portrays to everyone. And that's what we loved about her, because it wasn't as simple as she's always going to be the boss bitch, right? She's always going to be in control. She had layers to her. And this is what was missing in the entire, and just like that team. Everybody, even from the main characters that actually remained on the show. There was no depth to them. I cannot express to you how much I hated that show. So she winds up sitting down with the turtle. And again, I go back to, I know he knows he has bad breath, right? So he leans into her. He goes, what do you think of this shirt? And his mouth is completely open. And Samantha finally says, listen, dude, I'm paraphrasing. You have horrible breath. And he goes, oh, I know. It's these Chinese herbs that I'm taking for longer life. Dude, no. Then you know that you have bad breath. Close your mouth. Do something. Die. Excuse me. I don't even want to say that. Die younger. Figure it out. But at the very minimum, don't go into somebody's face. That's disgusting. Okay? And he actually does a funny, he goes, I've killed women for less than that. And that turns Samantha on. She goes, oh, the turtle in her mind that carries on, that she was impressed that the turtle made a joke. I'm like, that okay. That wasn't a joke. Then we pan into Samantha talking to Carrie back on the phone, and she goes, I'm going to take him and, get him fixed up. And Carrie's like, he's a person, not a brownstone. She goes, after I'm done with him, he'll be Gracie Mansion. What do you need, a project, Samantha? Have we run out of people to have Samantha with? In season 1, I didn't buy this at all. There's no way in hell I'm going to believe that this woman, who is as positive as she is, and I get that she has her insecurities, and I appreciate that, is going to go to the level of getting a fixer-upper guy, okay? Because she's so desperate for a compliment from anybody because some jerk who was never going to be right for her to begin with, even as a one-night stand, couldn't even stand her for more than 10 minutes in a bar. I'm not buying it. Next up. Stay tuned. It's coming. It's coming. Next scene. We have Carrie narrating in her apartment. She is kind of surprised that, we have Samantha who's going to play fixer-upper with the turtle. And she's saying to herself, well, I shouldn't be too surprised because I'm dating someone that doesn't ever want to get married. And that Miranda is having great sex with something that came in a box from Japan. Very specific. We know what that means. The rabbit. And that she needed answers. So for her mind, her answers would be with the one person that left her speechless at her own wedding, Brooke. So we go into I guess Brooke is returning some of her wedding gifts store. And she decides to ask Brooke, hey, how is marriage? And Brooke saying, oh, it's great. And she goes, is that a good thing? And Brooke is like, well, what do you mean? She goes, no, I just wanted to know, is it a good thing? Are you happy? And Brooke is like, I am so happy. It's like a weight has been lifted from me. $100,000, and that's what you paid for? I think you could have done better with a therapist, but okay, we'll go with that. And, she's not buying it, her being Carrie. She looks at her with her, crossed face. So they're walking out of the store, and, Carrie's apologizing for her statement inside the store. She goes, I think Alan, and by the way, I remember his name, Alan is great. And then all of a sudden she makes this remark. Brooke says, listen, it's okay. We all want to be, we all can't be like Carolyn Bessette. John is gone one day and then we just have to move on. Now, I'm presuming, because the only person that I recall being called John is John F. Kennedy Jr. So I'm presuming this is before he passed away, and Carolyn Bessette was his ex, and when they broke up, I presume. I should have checked the information, but I'm sure somebody in the comments will confirm that. And it just as a complete footnote, I was devastated when John F. Kennedy passed away. I really was. I remember where I was when I heard that news. What a family lineage. My God, he was handsome as hell. Okay. So if it's John, which is what I only remember, the only person I recall being called John, I kind of got the metaphor, the reference. Then all of a sudden Brooke sees Samantha and the turtle crossing the street. And she's like, oh my God, he looks great. And Carrie's narrating, and then, he's in some sort of label and, outfit. And, Samantha's like, oh, Brooke's like, oh my God, he looks amazing. He looks exactly the same as he did before. With that outfit or not. Okay. I didn't see any difference. And that Samantha starts petting him. I know he looks great. I'm like, Samantha, where are you? What are you do? What are you do? What are you doing? Woman, you're not that far off from being able to find someone better for you. But okay, we'll go with the C because it gets better. I don't know how, but it does. So as they're speaking, the turtle says, hey, don't I have a 3:00? And, Samantha says, yes, I'm taking him to Bliss for a facial. So is she paying for all of this? See, again, epilogue when it comes. So they run off, and Brooke says she's looking at them as they walk away, and she tells Carrie, smart girl. I'm like, she looks happy as Brooke looks miserable. This whole scene was set up that when Carrie was in her apartment typing, and I should have prefaced that in a city of great expectations, do we all just have to end up settling? And this is a very disturbing theme. And as you continuously watch this show, you realize how much they push the agenda that if you're not with someone, you're not happy. This is very prevalent then. It's still very prevalent now. And the way that so many people go about finding the one is probably the most disturbing part of anything. But the show really opens the can because I really learned a lot. Did it stop me from getting married? No. Did it stop me from getting a divorce? No. Am I happier now? Hell yeah. I would say no thanks to this show, but this show really pushed buttons for me. And it kind of pushed buttons for my friends too that were with me. Because as we go through the series and the years and stuff like that, out of the two of them, neither of them with the partner that they started off with when we were watching the show. For various different reasons. One of them cheating, another one abusive. And though it touches a lot about the relationships on, how unstable they could be, it really brings to light what women or people, because I don't want to say just women, people in general will do to have what they think is the dream. And they fall ass backwards into the wrong nightmare. And that's something that we all have to acknowledge. Don't push yourself into something because you think that you need to fall into some sort of bucket, because it never works. It just doesn't. And I know many people in my comments will share their stories, hopefully, but I think that for the majority of us watching this and who are engaging with me, something can come about this. And I know people have their own experiences. So let's get into the rabbit, or what we're going to call the Hare, and Charlotte. Because when Charlotte does something, it is never small. It's always to an extreme. Stay tuned and subscribe. The next scene I can affectionately call Charlotte and her sandbox. So we have Charlotte and Carrie taking a yoga class together. And as they're stretching themselves out, which I appreciated because I need to do yoga more often, obviously, Charlotte confesses to Carrie that she thinks that her sandbox is broken. Metaphors. And of course, it shocks Carrie. She goes, oh my God, she thought it was through the yoga class. And I'm like, wow, that would be a hell of a yoga class. I'm just saying. And she goes, no, with the rabbit. And Carrie is so happy that she's using the rabbit. But of course, Charlotte is very concerned because, she's like, like when you're with a guy and he's doing all the right things and you kind of feel good. And then Carrie expresses, but you can't enjoy it fully. And she goes, yeah, but with the rabbit, it happens every single time. And the last time I had it happen for 5 whole minutes. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, of course, first of all, it's remote controlled. You're controlling it. And to compare a man to an inanimate object that you're controlling with a remote control is not apples to apples. It's more like apples to a piece of steak. Completely off the pyramid scheme. Okay. So, Carrie is telling her, honey, you can still enjoy sex with a man. And Charlotte's like, no, no, no. I am never going to touch that thing again. Okay. Fine. Then she expresses to Carrie that she's not going to be able to go out with her that night because she has plans. And Carrie's like, yeah, like what? Charlotte, ever the horrible liar, says, oh, I'm expecting a call, a transatlantic call. I haven't heard transatlantic call since the 1970s. Are we still doing transatlantic calls? Is that what it was in I don't remember that. I heard of international calls. And because of this farce, Carrie's like, yeah, Charlotte was always a horrible liar. She's an addict. I thought it was hilarious. Poor Charlotte. She doesn't even know. So for 1 minute, she's saying she's never going to use the rabbit again. And the next minute, she's getting a transatlantic call to stay home with the rabbit. That's my girl. You ding dong. So the next scene we have is Stanford. So Stanford and Carrie went out on a Friday night to the Met to see a ballet show. And if you haven't ever done that, and you can, I recommend it. It is a beautiful experience from going into the Met, sitting down, watching the show. If you can do it. If you have done it, let me know. It's one of those New York landmark things that I highly recommend if you're into that kind of show. It's beautiful. So, as they're walking and talking, Carrie points out two men, a gay couple, to Stanford. And Stanford's like, I am so done with the gay scene. I don't think that's how it works. I think that, you're in the scene whether you want to be in it or not. I'm just saying. And that the part of the reason why is because it's so competitive. So Stanford had decided to put a personal ad because he was tired of the bar scene and every other way he was trying to figure out how to get a man's. And he puts a personal ad, and for some reason he puts in Ed Harris lookalike. This comes back up. I don't know why they have this thing that he looks like Ed Harris, but I've never noticed that he did, but okay, we'll go with that. So he's standing on a street corner on a rainy day, waiting for the person that answered the ad, which, by the way, standing on a street corner in New York City on a rainy day is one of the best experiences in the world. I know you think I'm being funny. I'm not. It's just something about a rainy day in New York. Like, it's not rain, but it's cold and it has, you're wearing a jacket. I can't explain it. Maybe somebody else in the comments can explain it, but there's just something about a cloudy day like that in New York. It's just, and then you go home and then you just curl up in your bed and you're just like really comfortable. I love it. So as Stanford is waiting on a corner for the person that's answering, he's looking at all these different men that are coming by. And the last man that comes by says, hi, Stanford. And he goes, yes. And he goes, yeah, this is not going to happen. Well, at least he was truthful. Direct. He took one look at him and he goes, you don't look like the type of person I want to be with. Goodbye. Porcito. Oh, poor Stanford. So then Stanford is expressing to Carrie that, he's tired of this, that gay men like him don't even want gay men like him. That's so sad that you look at yourself that way. Doesn't matter what you are. Gay, straight, doesn't matter. It's sad. So, Carrie is like, well, I'm dating a man who's never going to want to get married. So then this whole scene is set up for that. Stanford is telling Carrie that his grandmother will give him his inheritance to anybody in the family if they get married. So Carrie's shocked. She goes, she doesn't know that you're gay? He says she doesn't believe in gay. So, they turn out to talk about the fact that this might actually work. He proposes to Carrie. He gets his inheritance. She's allowed to be with other men, and so does he. And he will keep her happy in the most expensive shoes in the world. Broker the deal right there. Sign me up. Where are the papers? You need a lawyer? I'm sure Miranda's going to love to draw up those papers. This is, I believe this happens very often. Believe it or not, I actually do think this happens a lot. So the plan is, here's the plan. Stanford is going to stay gay. He's going to marry Carrie. He's going to get his inheritance from his grandmother who doesn't believe in gay people. And they're going to be living happily ever after being with other men. I never wanted a gay friend so badly that had money coming to him until that moment. Seriously. Now that's a desperate housewife situation I can get into. Stay tuned. Because now she has to explain to Big her marriage proposal. Unbelievable. Stay tuned. So these next scenes are words that I've never thought I would put together in any sentence whatsoever. So the next scene we have is that Carrie's in bed with Mr. Big and she's confessing to him that she received the marriage proposal and he's like, oh, really? By who? And she goes, by a very sexy, witty man. And he's still hesitating to ask. And do I know him? And yes, his name is Stanford Blatch. And he's like, isn't he gay? She goes, yeah. And he's coming into his inheritance. And that the deal is that I'm going to get married to him and I'm going to keep you on the side as my lover. And he's like, oh, really? Well, I guess you have it all. And I'm going to be honest with you. If this was real life, I completely can see Big accepting that. Her getting married, getting an inheritance to the gay guy, and him being the side man. I could totally see it. Why not? He doesn't want to get married. So what's stopping her to marry a gay guy and get an inheritance and be on his rich level and they can just be happily ever after whatever they're doing? It's plausible. I see it. Mm-hmm. The next scene we have is that Carrie's getting dressed and she's going out to a gallery opening with Miranda and Charlotte. Charlotte calls and she goes, oh, I can't come out with you girls tonight. And as Carrie's narrating, she goes, we know what that means is that Charlotte is planning to stay home with the rabbit and she's so wiped out. Yeah, I'm wiped out my butt. So the next thing we have is that there's an intervention happening now. So now Miranda and Carrie are stomping their way into Charlotte's home to do an intervention so she gets off the rabbit. Again, words I've never thought I would put together. And this is what I'm saying about good writing. How do you come up with this? Because I've heard a lot of interventions. I've seen a lot of interventions. I've never seen an intervention for a rabbit. Okay? And you know what I'm talking about? This show is hilarious because that takes a lot of ingenuity to think about how the hell we're going to get this girl off the rabbit. Okay? So as they stomp into her apartment, Carrie finds the rabbit stuffed in a stuffed rabbit. That's it. And she's like, oh my God, this is so you. I'm like, pretty much. So she takes the rabbit and she puts it in the stuffed, like a teddy bear, like rabbit. And she goes, I don't know what's wrong with you ladies. It's not like it's crack. Y'all made me get it. It's not like it's crack. And y'all made me get it. I have to tell you, we're all laughing in my house because we don't talk about those things, but we never did after, but we laugh, we chuckle because it's like, yeah, I'm trying to think out of my two friends, who would be the one addicted to this rabbit thing? I picked one in my head, never said it out loud. We'll never say it, but she knows who she is. So they're trying to tell her, listen, you got to get off this rabbit. Again, words I never thought I'd say. Because I can't say the real word. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's just funnier when you call it get off the rabbit. And she's like, well, no, I just don't want to go out there anymore and deal with men anymore. As she hears herself, she realizes that it's unrealistic. She can't stay with a rabbit for the rest of her life. And she goes, fine, I'll get dressed. And, I presume that she kicked the rabbit in its hair. Habit. I don't know how else to rhyme it. So rabbit is dead. She killed the rabbit. Almost like Fatal Attraction killer. You know what I'm talking about. So the next thing we have is Samantha, which was interesting. She is at a bar with the turtle. And, the narration of Carrie is that Samantha's trying to do everything she can to be in love with the turtle. Ooh, the rabbit. That to me seemed completely out of context for Samantha. I'm sorry, I'm going to stand on this. I didn't understand why she would want to fall in love. Listen, I know she wants to fall in love and she does, but to be that desperate to do anything she can to try to force herself to fall in love with somebody was completely out of character. for what we know about Samantha. Even back then, I was like, this seems a little off. I didn't realize how off it was until again on rewatch and now analyzing it. So she's at the bar with the turtle, and the turtle's insisting to try to figure out what mushrooms are in the meal, because I don't know why he's an investment banker, but this whole theme of him of trying to figure out what food or what fruit or what something in the food, I thought he was more like a food critic, but obviously he's not. Samantha's getting annoyed, and he keeps insisting on the different types of mushrooms. And finally, in her mind, she's like, listen, this is not going to work out. And she tells him, she doesn't tell him it's not going to work out. She tells him, she gets frustrated. And she realizes this is not going to work out. So she says, I think I'm going to take myself home. Good for you, Samantha. You really good for you. And apparently the turtle didn't give a furry rat's hair. See what I did there? He lets her go. He turns to the next one sitting next to him. I don't know if he has bad breath anymore. And he goes up to her and he does the same line that he tried to do before to Samantha. Do you like this shirt? My ex-girlfriend helped me pick it out. I don't know if he paid for it. And that's it. So we killed the rabbit. We killed the turtle. And Carrie is getting married and having Big as a lover. The show's so funny. And I mean that seriously. One of the best episodes. Except we'll get into the epilogue. So, are you ready for the actual arrangement that's going to happen between Stanford and Carrie and his inheritance? It's going to be funny. They don't. So, the next thing we have is Stanford, who apparently badgered Carrie to at least meet his grandmother, because he really thought he had a great idea, which was to get married and get his inheritance and then just live, happily ever after with other people as he has his money. So they're in the home of Stanford's grandmother, and, Carrie is expressing how much she loved the suit that she was in. And the grandmother expresses this was created originally from Coco Chanel. And, Carrie expressions like, oh, really? And see, I'm going to interject here. I don't buy for 5 minutes that she did not know that that was a Coco Chanel suit. Why? Because even I knew when I saw it that is one of the most popular Coco Chanel suits that's been ever created. And for me to know that, I didn't buy for 5 seconds that it was very disingenuous of Carrie, who lives by the label, that she didn't already know that was Coco Chanel. So as Stanford is saying that, she has this suit in so many different colors, the grandmother is saying, I've been wearing the same suit for 40 years in the different colors, and it still fits. That's dedication to a label for 40 years, and it still fits. As they're talking about this whole, fact that she's been wearing the same suit, she asks Carrie, what do you do for a living? And Carrie says, well, I write a column in the New York Star. Doesn't say the name. Why would she? So, the grandmother says, well, I was a career woman at once, but I gave it all up to have a family. So she gets up to her fireplace mantle and she shows all the pictures that she has of her memories. And, Carrie gets up and she looks at the pictures as well. And she goes, oh my God. And she finds the picture of Stanford. She goes, this must be you. And, the grandmother asks, and what about you? Do you want a family? So then Carrie looks at the memorabilia of pictures that the grandmother has on her fireplace mantle as she's thinking about it and narrating. She finally admits to the grandmother, to herself as well, that yes, I do want to have a family. Almost gave, Stanford a stroke, because he's like, wait, I agreed to a false marriage. I didn't agree to having kids. So the grandmother says to Stanford, be a dear and please go to the kitchen and get me a lighter for her cigarette. So as she turns to Carrie, she goes, you know that Stanford is a fruit. So Carrie narrates that she realizes at that moment that Stanford is not going to get any inheritance because his grandmother, as much as he believes or wanted to believe that she doesn't believe in gay people, knows very well that Stanford is gay. And the only thing that Stanford is going to get from an inheritance is the collection of her grandmother's Coco Chanel suits. So no attorneys needed. That's dead. Next scene you have is Carrie is in Big's apartment and he's cooking. And she's narrating that she feels that she has to tell him how she feels about not ever wanting to get married. That's what she's narrating. Now, what I'm going to say is that I'm not going to say this was the turning point where it endeared me to Big, because I don't think there is no major turning point, but I do like the fact that he cooks. Yes, because I like cooking. Yes, I think it's very nice that a guy cooks as well. And he takes real care. And even though I always said that Carrie always falls ass backwards into a relationship where all the men in her life cook, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it. It's a skill. Let me tell you, for everything we say, Carrie has a lot of skills. Okay? She never has to cook for anybody. She keeps shoes in her oven. She's always in labels. She has an array of very expensive shoes. She almost lost her apartment and then she gets it. And then she winds up marrying Mr. Big, who cooks. He cooks. And I'm not talking about macaroni and cheese from a box. Like, he's like testing the sauce that he's creating for them. Ends up marrying him and then getting his money after he passes away. That's a skill, baby. That's a hell of a skill. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Now, is it realistic? Probably. Because have you seen Real Housewives of anything? It's very plausible that this has happened more often than we, the general public, know about. So as he's asking her to taste the sauce, if it's too salty, she tells him, listen, I don't know if I don't ever want to get married. It's bothering me. And he's like, ooh. It was a subject he didn't want to broach, obviously. And no, this ends in the way that he says, listen, I thought that we were just having fun. These are the things that he says that goes right over her head, because he woos her. He tells her, I thought we were just having fun. And then he playfully touches her nose, saying that, oh, you have some sauce on your nose. She doesn't delve into what he's saying further. He kisses her and she narrates, my Zen teacher told me also that I have to live in the moment and not worry about tomorrow. And then she narrates, but he also then died, penniless and single. So did we resolve the situation here? What is the message you're trying to give out? Either you're living in the moment through your Zen teacher who died penniless and single, or you're going to address the situation that you feel that you want to be in a relationship with someone who could potentially marry, all through a sauce that he's cooking for you because you don't cook. And then he kisses you and it's over. It's like Puff the Magic Crazy. Seriously. She's okay with it. For the next 6 years. And that's how it ends. Nothing's resolved. Nothing's talked about. She's zenned out in the moment with her mans. Next up, epilogue. Stay tuned. Epilogue. Listen, it was a funny episode. It touched upon things that we normally don't talk about, even back then, especially back then. I think it's more common to talk about rabbits. I did find that part to be very funny. I like the way they handled it. Again, kudos to Darren Star and his writing. What struck me the most was definitely the narrative of Samantha. It didn't affect me as much as when I saw it that time, because I'm going to go back to people who don't know already the story of how I got into Sex and the City. I started watching Sex and the City in season 2, episode 1, where Samantha was already in a relationship with the jazz guy that she met at a jazz club. So I didn't get the history of Samantha, and I was forced to pick up HBO through my girlfriends who are watching the show, and they already went through season 1. And that's why they ended up in my house every Friday, watching as I'm catching up with the series, because they kept telling me Samantha, and I didn't get the whole Samantha thing. So even when I was watching it then, I found it striking that insecurity of her needing a compliment from anybody was pretty telling on what I had suspected, that she has a sexual addiction, and there is a deeper rooted issue with her and her feeling insecure about herself, where she puts herself out there, more aggressively than others. So, upon rewatch and knowing what happens in the further episodes, again, she does have different arcs where her insecurities come out, as we are all OG watchers. And that's why she was made one of the most compelling to me characters of the show. Because as we go through the different arcs, each one of them in their own right, Samantha to me still is the breakout star. And it kind of started to tie in for me how many levels there are to Samantha and her addiction to the sex and her feeling of insecurity on the inside, which is why this show meant a lot more on the writing and the characters and the development of their friendship moreover than all the sexual escapades and the different men and all this other stuff. The whole situation with Big, we all know how it turned out, how it was gone through these next episodes and seasons we're going to go through. I still stand even today, even though it broke my heart the way that he had passed away in And Just Like That. And we got to see very little of their relationship in the two movies. I still stand that they really made this up, their relationship, because at the end of the day, this was based on Candace Bushell. And even she didn't marry her version of Mr. Big. For all those who don't know this, and if you have known about this, she ended up marrying somebody completely different. So she never ended up with her version of who she's coining the phrase in this actual series, Mr. Big. So I can totally understand that, because if you really think about all the crap that he put her through, it would make sense. Now, sadly, I don't want to say sadly because that's wrong of me to say because I don't know her personally. The man that she married ended up being the equivalent of Petrovsky, the ballet guy, the actor that played the ballet guy, which we'll get into. She wound up getting a divorce from him too because he wound up cheating on her with somebody else as well. So at this moment, from what I understand, she's alone and she's in her 70s. Now, is she alone and happy? I don't know. I don't follow her. I've only seen snippets of things. And do you really know someone just by reading something about them? I can't tell you. I can only speak for myself. Right now, I am truly happy because I've been through so many different variations of difficult times. Now, it's not to say that if I find someone that I'm compatible with and that I can have a meaningful relationship in the long term, and as I start getting into my winter of my life, sure. I'm open to it. Am I actively looking for it? Absolutely not. Okay. But I am not scared to die without companionship. I'm more afraid not to be around with my family, my son. That to me is more frightening. How am I going to feel in 5, 10 years? I don't know. I'm still growing. I'm a growing girl. It's like anything can happen between now and then, and I'm open to it. But I am not going to sit here and pretend or say that the most important thing in your life is to have someone as companionship that's going to make you happy. Because if there's nothing else that we've learned, that's not always true. And it is true for those who find the right companion. And it's the right companion that you learn to compromise with. Because even the most perfect person in your mind, you have to make some compromises. You work through things. No one is perfect. And if you think that settling down or settling for anyone is going to make your life happier, that is the message that this show kind of trying to tells you, that be careful what you wish for because you just might get it kind of scenario. There are very successful marriages out there, but they're successful because they put the work into it. They didn't wake up and say, this is a successful marriage. I'm sorry. No. And it depends on their compatibility. Right? And I know that my viewers, there's a lot of people who've been married for a long time and they can tell you the same thing. You're not going to fall into a relationship that's going to be perfect for you and instantaneously. You're growing. You're getting older. And as you grow older, your brain, your mind, your needs, your wants change. And you have to have a partner that is willing and able to grow and with you, and you accept their growth and their changes. As long as you're both aligned, and the main goal is to stay together without harming each other, without being abusive, then that's to me a successful relationship. If you start growing and you're growing apart because you're not aligned, that's why so many marriages end in divorce. But I did enjoy this one. It was funny. Now we're going to go into the last three of this season. I cannot wait to get into 1999. You don't understand. I'm actually looking forward to giving you the history of 19. I'm looking forward to giving you the history of every season that opens, as you know. So let me know how you felt. I loved all the comments. Keep engaging, keep sharing, keep doing that, because we have to push this algorithm out. I need your help. You know, a lot of changes are coming to YouTube. I just got the memo, literally. So let's see if this helps with my algorithm, and if we can grow this up a little bit more and get more people that have been involved, or people I would love to see. My understanding is this. There's a lot of people that are in their 30s and 20s now that are just rediscovering Sex in the City now. I would love to get some of those people in here to see how they feel about watching this show so far back and how it affects them today. And I've been looking into this as well. Once I settle in, did you know that there's a Sex in the City tour in New York City? I would love to go on that tour and record it for us, to see where they take us, to all the famous places that this show has taken us. This is probably going to be next year. Again, context and content for you guys. Probably not in the winter because it's freaking cold out there. But let's target the spring that I get this tour scheduled and see if we can record all these famous places. I think it'll be a great addition to this platform. So, happy week. Let's get the next 3 videos out. Thank you all for all your love and support. And I want you to all to have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed day. And I'll see you literally, hopefully in a couple of days. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Goodbye. Mwah.